Welcome. This is the Public Works Podcast. My name is Joseph Blackman. Today, I got a real treat for you. Actually, it's three treats for you. As you can see, this is a panel or collective that we put together. Julie was spearheaded it, and it's a beautiful thing because it's three public works directors, and as you can tell, three women public works directors. And I think that when you tell stories, every story has its own perspective to be told from. So I'm eager to hear. I'm super curious about everybody's path, everybody's journey. So to start this off, Emily, um, give us what got you into public works, and then what your position is today, and then we'll start to dig into kind of the origin story of you all.
Sure. So I'm Emily Moon. I'm the Public Works Director in Issaquah, Washington. And I am new to my role. So this is going to be fun today. I can demonstrate all levels of curiosity and only a finite level of knowledge. But my background is actually in city management. And so I have good familiarity with all things city. I started in an HR department and learned that I loved all the business that cities do from working in that internal service department. And from there, decided to go to graduate school so I could focus on public administration. And I left city management a few years ago so that my family could take a family sabbatical. And afterwards, I missed cities and teams so much that I decided it was time to jump back in, and I actually rejoined my former city where I was the city administrator. So it's kind of like the principal returning to the school and teaching in the classroom.
Oh, that's a good analogy.
Yeah,
Love it.
It's been a fun but also interesting experience.
Love it. Kelly, go into your origin story. Kind of what got you into public works, how long you've been at it, and then what your current role is today.
Well, good afternoon. Thank you so much for having me today. I have an interesting pathway as well. When I was in college at the University of Washington, I interned for a chamber, an energy company, and for a city. And at that point, I was just super excited to have a job when I graduated. So through a ton of networking, I ended up working for a civil engineering company, small one in Bellevue, Washington. And I was there for 12 years. I did everything from at first clipping newspapers. This is the early days of the 90s, so early days of growth management in the state. And learned a ton about modeling and forecasting. My expertise was data and forecasting using the census data and land use data. Learned a lot about the Growth Management Act, utilities elements, code development, just a wide range of things. Worked for some special purpose districts, water and sewers. That was part of the bread and butter of that work at the time. And I too went back to graduate school and thought, I could do something. I could do something more. And was hired by the state of Washington, the Department of Commerce, to be the executive director of the Public Works Board, which is a $2.5 billion fund that helped water and sewer cities, counties, special purpose districts across the state fund their infrastructure. And then I took a little detour through higher education for 12 years at the University of Washington Bothell campus, growing it from 1,600 to 6,000. It was like working for a startup company for a period of time, doing a lot of building and getting funding, and then was missing my public works. Really was excited to get back into public works. This opportunity came up, and now I'm the public works director for Snohomish County.
Love it. So 2 out of 3 of you started to miss public works and just had to come back. So Julie, is that a part of your story also? Tell us what got you into it and what you do now.
Not really. So I started in the other Washington, outside of Washington, D.C., and I worked for public affairs where we, did a lobbying on the Hill. And I, having went to school out there, I thought, I'm going to, work on the Hill. And then that just was not very satisfying. If you can imagine the Beltway politics, how unfulfilling that was. And I kind of was like, what do I do? And so what do you do when you don't know what to do? You go to graduate school. So I went to graduate school in public administration. I knew public service was where I really wanted to go. And I ended up landing into this internship with the city of Rockville, Maryland. And it was in the city manager's office. And I remember, going to my first council meeting, I was just like, what? People are just going up to the podium and speaking directly to the elected officials and telling them their problem. And I was just like, no way, and I just thought that was so awesome that you could really bring your problems to your governing body, your government, and they will try to help you. And so I was hooked, but I wanted to be the city manager. So I was like, that was my career goal. I did it not once, but twice. So I was city manager of Shoreline and city manager of Mercer Island. And, I was in between gigs, and, my colleague, the city manager of Kirkland, calls me up and says, hey, I need an interim. Would you be interested in public works director? And I'm thinking, okay, anyone can do something temporarily. So I was like, yeah, I'll do that. Sure. I mean, I'm not doing anything else. Why not? So I came aboard and COVID hit, and I was just like, oh my God, this is tough going through COVID, trying to stabilize the organization. And then I found myself just loving this work. Never thought, if you had said to me, oh, what, if you could be a director of any department, would it be no, it never would have been public works. So what a wonderful surprise. And now I'm in it, and I am just like, I'm so fond of our team. I love what we're very mission driven, very purpose driven. I just love that. And, there's also something about kind of being a little less into the politics, and Emily and Kelly know what I'm talking about. When you don't have to be in the direct line of fire, it's nice. It's a nice break. So
everybody's
that's where,
nodding. So.
Yeah. So anyway, that's my story.
So,
and, it was an accident.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Emily, I kind of wanted to get in what Julie was saying. And the question for you, so you're the newest here, the newest director here, sounds like. Yeah. And you came from city management also. So what, explain it to somebody who doesn't know, like you think city manager, okay, you're managing something in the city, that's a public works director. So what's the difference? And then like, what are some transferable skills, the stuff that you learned in city management that helps you in regards to public works being a director?
Yeah. So Julie kind of pointed to something that I guess I'll emphasize, and that's not only is the city manager maybe more involved with the politics and the overall policies of the city. I often talk about city manager kind of being akin to that principal in the school, kind of making sure all the day-to-day operations of the city are running smoothly. And so that means every department. And one of the things that I loved about city management is that you did get to learn things about all those different operations. You were a generalist for sure. But the flip side of that is that there are moments, I think, as a city manager where you can feel like your influence or your ability to bring about change is spread across all those departments. And so the depth of kind of the return on your investment gets to be a little bit challenging because you are spread pretty thin. So I think that's one of the things that Julie and I have both found that we love about working in public works is you can have the day-to-day impact, but you can also shape a team and the vision for that department, and then you get to be involved in the execution and implementation. You don't have to just leave the room and go to the next meeting all the time.
Sure. Julie, and you brought up the politics side of things. Define what that looks like. Like, are you elected official? Do you have to run every year? Is it one of those things where, that side of the aisle doesn't talk to this side of the aisle and it's so hard to get things done? Like, explain the politics side of it.
It's so I it's the CEO of a municipal corporation is what a city manager is, or a city administrator. You are the CEO of that organization, and your board of directors are the elected officials, the council members who are elected. And the only employee they hire is the city manager. That is their only employee. Everyone else works for the city manager. So, so the city manager, obviously is viewed by the council as, at least that's how I see it, is viewed as the council's most trusted senior advisor. You are advising the council on operations, you're advising the council on finances, anything, and and the politics, I think the best description I've heard, it's like, when a city manager is like, God, if I could do my job, if I didn't have politics, is this equivalent as a pilot saying, wow, I could really fly if I didn't have gravity. Well, it's just part of the job. You got to just kind of navigate it, right? I'm not to say we all still have politics in our job. Don't get me wrong. It is still, it's still out there. It's still out there. It's just, I have gone from, and I think Emily can appreciate this, from I had 7 elected officials that were my bosses, basically, down to 1 boss. So that has been a real, been really great to be able to go back to kind of having 1 master, so to speak, instead of 7. And it's not only just 7. I mean, we have 92,000 residents. In some cases, those are all your bosses too, right? A lot of ways. So it's crazy.
Kelly.
And that's similar in the county. So we have 5 county commissioners, or county council members, actually. Some counties have commissioners, but we have council members. And so there's 5 of them. But we have a county executive that's elected. So that's sort of like the mayor, but slightly different. And in Snohomish County, that's over 850,000 residents, and that use our roads and our garbage. And I'm part of the executive cabinet, but there is a whole layer between me and the county executive. And I talk to the county executive often, and I talk to the council members often, but it's kind of like the proximity to the sun. If the elected officials are the sun, a public works director is farther away from the sun as compared to those who are between, let's see, myself and the county executive and or the county council. So I talk with them often. We triage community issues often on behalf of all the elected officials, but and certainly I have to engage in the legislature at the state and still the federal government, all of those things. But the day-to-day is more about the operational side of the house, which is, like most public works directors, our focus.
Sure. And Kelly, you said you're at a college, and you grew up from 1,600 to 6,000, or you were there during the growth of that. So one of my passions is workforce development. So taking people who are competent and then making them into the dream employee, so to say. So what's it like? And then maybe you could speak on the difference. Like Emily or Julie, you could speak on the differences with cities versus counties. The difference, or that growth of having employees or operators, managers, supervisors, people under you, that you have to get to the next level with that kind of growth that you guys might be seeing in that area.
Wow, that's a huge question. We could probably spend an entire podcast just on that subject. So make a note. I think the higher education part of my career has been fascinating. Watching young people, primarily first generation, first attenders of college, trying to figure out how to navigate a system, understanding where to find the library, how to write a paper, all of those things. And then 4 to 5 years later, graduating, like launching into a job and having the pleasure of working with so many students. It wasn't my primary duty, but I really enjoyed that development side and helping them with a resume and a LinkedIn and to connect and network and really see all of the skills that they've gathered in their time in as a student and oftentimes having multiple jobs to put themselves through school, gathering all of those translatable experiences and putting them on a resume so that they're best prepared to go out and launch into the world, which is very similar to our employees, right? Like, how are we developing our employees? What kind of training do they need? What kind of skills do they have? How can they show up in their most authentic way? How do we leverage and optimize those skills so that perhaps they start out in a road maintenance labor job and then they end up as a surveyor or a supervisor or manager or division director? You know, we have we have people in our team who've been there for 30 years, and then some who are just starting out their careers and maybe they're in their mid 40s. And, you know, there's so many great pathways. I have over 550 staff, and in the summertime, over 650 staff. So a pretty large team, and figuring out how to optimize that, creating a culture where it's not just me, because I can't possibly engage with every single one of my team, but it's important to kind of create that culture so that everybody is on board to figure out what it is that our employees need to best prepare them for the future, whether it's innovation or pure technical skills. You know, did they take their CDL class? Are they ready to embrace about diversity, equity, inclusion? So it's just a wide range of sorts of skills that you need to be in the workforce and continue to challenge ourselves.
It's interesting you say that, because all of you went back to school, right, to get your master's. So, Emily, what would be the equivalent to somebody who might not even have a bachelor's to go back and, I guess, cultivate themselves to put themselves in a better position to move through after working for a county to ascend in their career?
Yeah, and I think that still happens today. I mean, I think it's a real falsehood to believe that you must go to graduate school to advance in your career. I think anyone with the aptitude to learn new things, with the drive, can get there. One of the things that I think is really important is saying yes to opportunities. So Kelly talked about creating a culture that supports learning and development. I think it's down to the individual as well, making sure everyone understands that that drive has to come from within to some degree, and nurturing that. And then I think organizations can do a great job of providing those opportunities. And if they have sparked the yes to opt in, then hopefully people choose to take advantage of those opportunities. So I think that's particularly important in small organizations where it's easy to get pigeonholed by your job title, because there might be just one of you in that organization and you have to do that job because no one else is doing it. However, the flip side of that is it often takes more than one person to get all the work of the city done. And so many good organizations look at performing the work of the city through teams that are cross-departmental. And so I think good organizations look for opportunities for people with those aptitudes and that willingness to get experience across department lines, where they might also grow their ability to lead a project or to mentor a different employee, learn a new job skill that they might need to advance, whether it's within your organization or out. But I do think it's really important to point out that you can have that spark from within and be ready. Look for opportunities, ask about opportunities, and say yes.
Sure. And I uh, I love what you said, saying yes to opportunities. And Julie, I'm going to put you on the spot. So I need you to give us a story of when you said, as a woman, when you said yes to an opportunity and you saw it changed the trajectory of your career. Like, you intentionally said yes to something and you knew that it led you in a better direction if you would have said no to an opportunity. And then also I want you to answer what, like kind of Emily was saying, what you are doing within your department, within your city to, I guess, ignite that spark for somebody else to be able to say yes to an opportunity.
Yeah, that's, I when I worked for Rockville, Maryland, I love that organization so much. I really thought I would be there for a long, long time. And then I got um, I got pinged for the assistant city manager position for Shoreline, Washington. And I was like, at first I was like, wait a second, this city is only 6 years old. I mean, I came from Rockville. That's a city that's been around 400 years. Okay. So you kind of, you go from colonial times and, on the East Coast to startup. And I was like, and I mean, I was wringing my hands. Do I take this opportunity? Do I not? And how do I, but I'm so glad I did. I mean, wow, what an opportunity. And I had to move across the country. It was scary because like I said, I loved Rockville. I didn't think I was going to leave Rockville, but it just was such a fantastic opportunity to be at a brand new city, create that culture, from the ground up, basically. And I do considered myself at the time, I was hired to be the keeper of the culture and really establish the culture, influence the culture. I do say if my husband hadn't been recruited to go to the Bay Area, I'd still, God willing, council wanted me, I'd still be there. I loved Shoreline. So it was one of those things that, but, these opportunities bleed into other opportunities. I mean, I'm following my husband, I'm trailing him to the Bay, and I end up meeting with Pat Martell, who's the city manager of Daly City. And I end up working with her and she's fantastic. So it's that sort of thing. You just obviously I said yes to this opportunity. I mean, I'm so glad I did. I didn't have to, but I was like, I'm so glad I did. I really love what I'm doing now and never would have thought I would, and we are desperate in our world. I'll speak for myself. Recruiting talent has been a challenge. It's been right, Joseph? It's a challenge to get people interested in what we do when they can go so many other places. And I really truly believe, our value add is the unique opportunity to make a meaningful difference. You're never going to get this. Are you really going to get that, working for, Johnson & Johnson or, Facebook or, I just think that's the really meaningful difference we're making is really our secret sauce. It's why you should come to local government.
Yeah. Kelly, you said the word twice in this interview already, and the word is networking, which is one of the favorite words of mine, because kind of like Julie and Emily were saying, when you don't have these opportunities to say yes unless you put yourself out there. I mean,
Absolutely.
How many times in throughout our lives we realize, like, man, I'm kind of at a dead end. Like, I'm kind of feeling stuck, like, feeling stagnant, but if you do itinerary of your last 6 months of your life, you're just, you're watching Netflix every night. You're not going out and meeting people. You're eating a lunch by yourself. And then it's that kick in the butt, like, dude, you got to get out there and start talking to people, So Kelly, as a woman, because we know this industry, you guys would know more than me, but the higher you get up, the more, men have power, and it's all these weird idiosyncrasies. But as a woman, how has it been networking, and what advice would you give to somebody coming fresh out of school and she's like, hey, I want to ascend in my career, but there's these two sleazy guys and I just don't know how to get around them to circumvent that position. So you got any advice for them?
Yeah, the journey has not been easy, whether it's been gender, whether it's been age, whether it's been I'm not an engineer. All of those things have been sort of interesting barriers along my journey, maybe speed bumps, if we want to use a public works terminology, speed bumps along the way, or speed humps, speed tables. those have been challenging, but I think network and when I look back, almost every single job that I have either gone after or taken has been included in networking. And LinkedIn is incredible, right? That's how Julie and I met, through another person who introduced us. And when I meet with our interns who work for our department in the summer, each of them meet with me individually. I challenge them to make a LinkedIn account before the end of the summer, that they're going to connect with me and every single one of the people on the team that they've worked with, including the contractors, encourage and invite recommendations. I mean, using that tool is incredibly, and I'm not paid by LinkedIn to say these things. I think it's just a really powerful tool that you can search and filter and adjust. And it's really incredible and doesn't cost anything. I don't have the premium service or anything like that, but but back in the day, that's a little more difficult. Like, who do you know? Who do you know? Can you introduce me to 12 more people? Doing informational interviews and asking, can you refer me to 3 more people? Are there jobs that you've loved? It's not unlike some of these conversations, right? I get invited to speak to small groups of women and really encourage them. I have a 24-year-old daughter who's now an industrial engineer and works for Boeing and was at the 747 delivery last week. Very exciting. And, I mentor her, and I mentor still students who are now alumni from the university along the way, because it is difficult. Even though we're all clamoring to hire people, it's still difficult to find the right person for the right job who has the skills and experience necessary to be successful. And how can we help foster that environment? How can we do our own personal assistance with these students so that they are ready? And I really want to make a point of what Emily said. It's not just about those who attend college. It is. I have a ton of laborers. Over half of my workforce is in the labor route. And so, I make special intention to go and talk to the labor folks that are out in the field, who didn't have that luxury under COVID to be working from home and remotely. They're out on the front lines every single day. And I just am so proud of all that they represent and want to make sure that they know that they have pathways too. So we talk a lot about pathways. And if people can't envision that for themselves, maybe that's part of our job too, is to help them say, hey, if you want to do other things, we can have that happen for you. Let's figure out what we can do. And Emily also pointed out, very rightly so, that it takes that initiative. So looking at those, it's about working hard. It's about seeking those opportunities, but it's also putting out there in the universe that you might want to do something else and tapping into that talent.
Yeah, and networking is so much easier today because we have social media. Back 20 years ago, men would network by going to play golf or grabbing a beer or whatever. But, we don't have to do that nowadays. We just don't need to. We really can just ping someone on LinkedIn, and make that connection. It's so much easier than it was 20, 25 years ago.
Yeah, 100%. So, Emily, I always like to ask this question when I interview people on this podcast is, so one thing I've noticed in, let's just say in the blue collar industry, is that a guy can have 30 years of experience, but sometimes that 30 years of experience could be the same year, just 30 times. So we don't really know if he got better all those instances. So I always like to ask the question, what are you doing that's actionable that somebody else can glean from who's watching this interview? What do you do intentionally that sharpens your sword every year to make sure that you show up every year better, better, or better? Did I lose you on that, Emily?
Sorry, my video and audio was lost for a little bit. So how do you get better year over year?
Yeah. What are you doing personal? Okay. Your personal development regimen and your professional development regimen.
Okay. On the personal side, well, for me, it is staying curious. I think you have to be the type of person who wants to continue to learn. And so for me, it's I like to read. We were just talking about networking, so I love having conversations with my colleagues, learning what they're doing. I take advantage of training opportunities as well. And I think I try to pick a goal every year for myself. What is it that's nagging that I want to get better at that hasn't had the attention perhaps over the last year, and I try to find ways to make that piece better.
Sure. Julie, same question to you.
Well, similar to Emily, I mean, like, I have a growth mindset, so I nerd out on like leadership podcasts and leadership management books. And, I buy all kinds of things for myself, because I just feel like I can never learn enough. And so, and I use these materials that I have access to, and I share them with my leadership team. I'm like, our communications, we have a communications priority, and it's listening. So we will be talking about facilitated discussion on listening. How can we do this better? And I think it is about being curious about these things. I'm also, because I don't have a civil engineering degree. I am a generalist, I signed up for oh my gosh, it's a 6-week course on like engineering stuff for non-engineers. And so I'm like, okay, I'm really digging this work. So let me get into it. So, I still can learn. Like, there is still so much to learn. I definitely feel like my technical side could use bolstering, but I also feel like that's not why my city manager hired me. He doesn't need a city engineer. We got one. He needs a good leader. He needs a good leader that's going to build a solid bench, right?
That's a good point.
That's going to get us to the finish line. That's going to be able to mobilize people, galvanize people. That's my job. I don't need to be the city engineer. I don't need to have that level of detail. I need to have very competent, trusted partners. They're my partners. Our leadership team they're my partners. I have to trust and lean on them. Shared leadership model. It's, and I think that's, again, coming from a strength-based approach. So I'm always, your podcast, Joseph, I'm learning all kinds of stuff on your podcast.
Thank you.
So so, books on tape, going to webinars. I mean, I just feel like I am a lifelong student.
Love it. Love it. Kelly, you want to shed some light on your personal and professional development regimen?
Yeah, I am always challenging myself to do new things. I still surprise myself all the time about the things that I try to do. I think the more time goes by, I want to try to have more balance. And an empty nester I am now, and I could easily let this job completely take over my life. And I've been trying to be really mindful and purposeful about the amount of time. And I too like to nerd out on all sorts of cool like trainings and podcasts and readings. And I'm just my word for the year is balance. So I'm trying to have better balance for myself, because the more that I can have that self-reflection and make sure that I'm caring for me, the more I show up better in the workplace and can help lead and manage for others. And I think that sometimes as women, we don't do that very well. There's a lot of demands. And throughout my life so far, there's been over the top demands in my life, whether it's caretaking for my dad for 10 years until he died, early stages of COVID. Same for my grandmother and raising a child, and, my husband as well, taking care of him and being in a relationship. Those are all equally as important as the community service, the public service that we give. And, legislative work is heavy work, but so are snow and ice fights, flooding. Those are, any time of the day, any time of the year. And so that can be draining. And so making sure that there's balance. And I really enjoy having as much fun in my personal time as I do at work, because I really enjoy what it is that I do too. I had someone tell me in graduate school, you need to leave when you're about 51% or greater. You're not liking that job anymore. And I love my job. People are like, aren't you going to retire? My husband's retired. Aren't you going to retire? And I'm like, oh, I got things to do. I have a list. I have a purpose. I have a mission. I got to get Sound Transit to Everett. I got things, and those are important things. I see it's not just important to me, but important to the entire community. And so having that vision and having that balance are the two things I like to focus on.
Love it. Love it. All right. This question goes to everybody. And I always ask this question, whoever comes on the Public Works podcast. This will be the final question. So if you were commissioned to put up a billboard, and this billboard is in the most trafficked area of Kirkland, we'll start with you, Julie. So the most trafficked area of Kirkland, what ask of your community in regards to Public Works would you put on this billboard?
Suspend judgment.
Excellent.
Suspend judgment. You know what? Before you immediately assume that the city doesn't know what it's doing, just be curious and suspend judgment and get the story. Because it's so easy. It's so easy to just attack, especially in our world, and I just ask the community, please suspend judgment and hear all sides.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. All right, Emily, the most trafficked area of Issaquah, what are you going to put on the billboard?
Well, right at this moment, I am trying to create better awareness of the value of our public works department. So I would probably, focus on that. Campaign to be named soon. I don't want Julie, riffing up my stuff anyway, but I think I would have some kind of clever little logo that would cause people to say, whoa, what is that all about? And help them to understand everything that we do on a daily basis and how it impacts the quality of life in the community, because I think I think it's not well known, and I think it's underappreciated. And I'm a big fan for saying that our folks in the Public Works Department do more on a daily basis to affect the quality of life in our community, the livability of it, than any other entity in town.
Sure. And it, like I told Julie before, that was the catalyst behind starting this podcast. So I came into the industry selling heavy equipment to cities, street sweepers and combo trucks. And when COVID hit, the news cycle only talked about fire, PD, and nurses being frontline essential workers. And I said, that's a whole bunch of hogwash. I said the guys I've been flushing streets with and sweeping, refuse, like the refuse route, those are frontline essential workers, because if this stuff doesn't happen, who cares if you break your ankle or, who cares if, you need this stuff. I'm not saying I have family in all three, fire, PD, and nursing, but frontline essential workers, public works comes to mind for me. And I said I wanted to start a show where I can highlight the people who I thought were frontline essential workers. So that's where this came from. But Emily, to your point, it's awareness. It's kind of like how engineering was sexy right out of the Great Depression. Everybody wanted to build America, and everybody got into these engineering careers. And then when tech got hot, everybody wanted to go in the tech community. And now AI and Web3 is hot, so everybody's starting to go that direction. We need to make public work sexy again. I mean, you three are doing it already, but I'm just here to help. So, Kelly, same question to you. If you were commissioned to put up a billboard in the most trafficked area of Snohomish County, what ask of your community would you put on this billboard?
Well, so the county itself has a ton of rural areas, so I'd actually maybe put it out closer to the rural side. Although if you incorporated the urban part of Snohomish County, it'd be the third largest city in the state, shockingly. It is a huge area, unlike other counties are mostly rural. But I would pick two billboards. But one would be recycle, because my team is in charge of the trash. So you talk about those frontline workers; they're the ones at the transfer station and the drop boxes, and all the haulers from the curbside come there and bring their trash. So recycle, and the other one would be slow down. And there's a lot of meaning behind slow down. But Washington State Legislature has really focused a lot this session on safety and road safety. And so slow down in construction zones, slow down so you're not hitting pedestrians, slow down because you're speeding. There's tons of benefits from slowing down. But I think also as a society, we need to slow down a little bit.
That's true. That's true. Well, to the three of you, on behalf of the listeners, thank you for coming on the Public Works Podcast. Thank you for sharing part of your story with us. To all the listeners out there, make sure you share this with somebody who you think needs to hear it. Share this with a young lady out there who's looking to get into public works, or she wants to go take over the world. And I mean, public works is a great start to take over the world, by cleaning up the city. Are any final words from the three of you before we get out of here?
Thanks, Joseph. This was fun.
Thank you
Absolute
very much.
pleasure. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
It's great.
All right. Well, this has been the Public Works Podcast, and thank you for tuning in.